I'd like to call our meeting to order, the September 1st, 2022 Election Board meeting, Monroe County Election Board meeting. Well, I guess that's the, the clock telling me we started right on time. So I'll start first with old business, agenda item number 2. And our first item is the approval of the minutes of the August 4th Election Board meeting. Can I have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the August 4th meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Roll call, yes. How about Chairperson Rana,
Yes.
Board Member Garland,
Yes.
and Clerk Brown?
Yes.
Motion approved, 3-0.
Great, thank you. So we'll move on to our next item, which is the late CFA for filings. And I believe that's Karen. Do you have an update
Yes.
for us?
So I kind of have a two-part thing on this one. I have one that you've asked, you wanted everybody to send in something. They didn't have to appear, but they needed to send something in explaining why they were late with their pre-election or pre-primary CFA 4. And I received one from everyone excepting Carl Lamb. And I've had a number of emails back and forth, and I still haven't gotten it unless it's gotten lost in the email, but I've asked explicitly if I missed it, please send it again, but I do not have it.
Do we know if it's a first offense or second offense for that person, or could we find out?
I am really sorry. I
Oh,
think,
can you hear me? Okay, I was having trouble hearing you too, so sorry. This is good, right? Now,
yes,
Okay.
better.
so my question was, do we know if this is a first or second offense for that person?
I think I'm still not understanding you, but we've had a lot of communication, and I don't really know what to do. I've actually sent a letter previously. I don't think I've called them, but in general, the CFA 4, I'm wondering if we need to do a different kind of system. Maybe one of you know how to do this better, but I've spent a lot of time since this was late, not just this one, but a lot of them, multiples, letters, calls, emails for the same person. And I don't know if we need to think about the penalties being differently if you don't respond. I really don't want to penalize people, but I think I'm spending way too much time trying to follow up and then make sure I mark it down and respond. And I don't remember ever doing this much before.
And I think that brings up a very good point. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, she had asked if this was that candidate's first offense.
Oh, yes.
But I think that this was the concern that I had. We haven't all been together for a while, but this was the concern that I had if the standard is going to be accepting a written explanation versus coming in person to explain yourself, because it's not taken seriously. And candidate filings are a very serious matter. And thank you for the work that you have put in trying to reach out to that candidate. In the past, we have talked to the party chair for the candidate to have the party chair nudge them. I'm sure that's happened. I don't know if either of you would be willing to reach out to the party chair to see why we've not gotten that explanation for that, because how many months has this?
April.
I think this is beyond the pale.
And maybe that would be a good step in the beginning, because we're coming up to we're going to have the pre-election CFA 4s coming up soon in October. And maybe the chair needs to be CC'd on any email that is sent or a letter. It calls, it's kind of hard, but you're just wanting to make this a smooth transition. You're trying to be helpful. Please respond to this. But again, he's the last one, but he's not the only one that I had difficulties with. And I even hate saying that word, but I'm just not getting the response.
Have you had any communication at all, or just complete?
No, I have emails that they wanted to come in the August meeting. Now I have to say this election board I don't remember what exactly happened. It could have been my fault. It could have been something else. But we had a meeting, probably the May or June. And then we didn't have it in person. We had it in Zoom, I think. And some people came. Do you remember that? And we weren't here. So that was confusing. But then we've had things since then at meetings, and they asked if they could come in August. And that was responded yes. And then now it's September, but I've had other communications before. If you ever want to look at the emails, I have them here.
My opinion would be to revisit this after this election cycle and set forth our expectations clearly. And I think if we're not responding at all to requests, and I don't know the exact circumstance, if that candidate showed up that day that we had virtual and was actually here, then I think that's a bit of a gray area. But if we set out our expectations and then people just ignore them, whether it is written or in person, I think that immediately just moves you to the next category. And
Yeah.
I think it needs to be taken seriously no matter what. And I'm not being accusatory that this isn't taken seriously. We don't know the circumstances of this particular, if
We
it
certainly,
came or not.
right, and so certainly not being here could be miscommunication or a misunderstanding, but to not even respond to the notice. And I believe that their published campaign address, contact information is used. So you get the notification of who's filed for candidacy, but you can't respond to the CFA 4. I think that says something.
Yeah.
But perhaps this is a representative for the candidate, and I'm not aware.
I'm sorry, I was, the thing on the door said sign in. If you wanted to, I was waiting until the item I wanted to comment on. I just wanted to sign in.
Oh, are you here for public comment? Is that-
Yes, for election testing machines.
I see, but you're
But
not
I'll-
responding to our current discussion.
No, no, no.
Okay, we just
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
check. Okay.
And is there, I'm sorry to interrupt, is there a time limit on, I mean, a couple minutes was what I was shooting for, but I just wanted to get it on my,
Yeah, it's 3 minutes, I believe, right, for public comment.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess a little bit lost my train of thought, but what I wanted to add is I agree with both of you. And it sounds to me like there was already a procedure in place, and that's what we're talking about. That
There-
was communicated and
I can give you a bit of background from my chief deputy clerk days in that my predecessor wanted those CFA 4 meetings to be held here so that it was taken seriously. This,
I
in an
see.
emergency, can serve as a courtroom in Monroe County if something should happen at the Justice Building. And so she fought to have those meetings here and public so that candidates would take the fact that their filing was late seriously. And so I was out of town May, June, but I did watch the meetings. And that was my concern as the discussion came up about a written explanation being sufficient
I see.
in that there's got to be some accountability,
Right. And the answer to-
especially with all of the trouble, as Karen mentioned, that she goes to make sure that you're notified in plenty of time when it's due. You're notified as soon as it's over, the deadline has passed, that you missed the deadline. You're given opportunities. We've taken very liberal consideration for if it's your first offense, getting a warning, if it's your second offense, getting a stronger warning, to then, not even bother to respond to the communications. I'd like to remind the board that we had one after the presidential election where he moved away and he just simply stopped
Yeah.
responding to us. This is a serious matter, and every candidate is held accountable for filing the appropriate paperwork at the appropriate time. If that is not taken seriously, what is the point of taking office? In my humble opinion.
And I agree. And it sounds to me like what you're saying is the purpose of coming in person is to be able to answer to the public about why someone hasn't complied with the rule. And so the public knows what's going on.
Absolutely. The
And
people
so-
you are asking to vote for you should see this.
Right. And so we were actually being a little bit extra accommodating perhaps by allowing people to submit written comments kind of in part due to the in-person, we were transitioning from COVID and everything last spring as well. But it sounds like this person has complied with neither. Right. So, okay. Even the more generous standard.
And all the things that I do to help them, to warn them or to remind them of the deadlines, that is not required. Maybe you said that, Clerk Nicole, but it's just that we're trying to help.
Right. So you went above and beyond and also tried to reach out. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, so I completely agree. And I think that I would be in favor of imposing the appropriate penalty. What I don't know is what our past practice has been and what the appropriate penalty would be.
I understood this to be his first offense.
Yes.
So the penalty would be a warning to get it in.
So the first offense, we don't charge
We do
them,
not charge for the first offense, so it would be.
but we have something in there that, I don't know how that's written up. Sherry had all those notes of,
But that,
it's what our guidelines are, but if things aren't followed, that's kind of an interesting detail that we could charge them a penalty.
I see, because, right, okay, because they didn't comply with even what we asked
Right.
in
Because
response.
it's continuing to accrue as the days pass. What we could charge is continuing to accrue, correct?
Yes, it's $50 a day up to $1,000.
Well, to be clear, the form was filed. What
He
we're
did.
missing is
Yes,
the documentation about
you're right.
why.
you're right. So that they would not be fined that. I think they actually did it on that same day. I think they were just late. They were one day late.
And then the fines are calculated based on how many days late.
So
Is that-
they filed the CFA for one day late.
Okay.
But they haven't followed through on what your request has been. So it would probably be very hard to find them because they
Yeah.
didn't do it.
I would say that we need to certainly take this as a learning opportunity, and post-election this year, I think we need to get this on the agenda for all of us and make it crystal clear what our expectations are and what the procedure is, and just go from there. And I don't personally have a problem with anything that I've heard in terms of what we want to do. But I don't know that at this point it's going to matter so close to the election. So I think we need to,
So how fair is it? Because we're obviously going to be busy the next couple months. How fair is it to request of my team that we get something in writing, the previous precedent to the election board so that we can all review it individually? And then, as you say, after the election, come back together.
oh no, I certainly think we still need to get this, but what I'm saying is I don't think that in the future Karen should have to hold anyone's hand because we're adults.
She's-
Number two, I think we need to just be clear on what our expectations are, because this could be a very gray situation, if that candidate did come to that particular meeting and we don't know it, or, and it's not worth the time going through the emails right now in a public meeting, but I'm saying this is a bit of a gray area. But to be clear, from my standpoint, I would absolutely say we still need an answer on what this reason was regardless, because this is the only candidate, it seems, that has not fulfilled our request.
So is it fair to ask the party chair to?
Yeah, I don't see why not. We need to do whatever we can.
Gently remind them that we have been looking at this issue since April.
Can I make another suggestion? I do think that is fair to make that reminder. And I'm going back to the idea that the reason for all of this is not to just scold people, but to answer to the
Absolutely.
public and for public information. And I'm wondering, I know when people submitted written submissions, we read them aloud, or at least noted that they had submitted them. And I'm wondering if, to be consistent, like, it shouldn't be that if you fail to comply with the rules that no one knows that because you never end up having either a statement read or come in person. And so I would suggest to be consistent that, we do what you say and ask for a nudge and, another chance to respond, but that if there's no response, that we then read the warning that's sent to the person into the record at one of our meetings so that each candidate is treated publicly fairly, if that makes sense.
Certainly, certainly. I guess that I don't want it to be missed that we already go above and beyond, particularly Karen, this has largely fallen to her. It was intended to be a courtesy. And I feel that this could be mistaking kindness for weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care for that in as far as the seriousness of the late filing.
Yeah, I agree. And you've pointed out it's been going on since April and it's now September, right? And there's been numerous communications. So, yeah, so in terms of, I guess we need some kind of motion, but maybe since we're still discussing, can I propose something like that for our next steps that we do take it upon ourselves to be very clear about the procedure. I think we already have a procedure established, but that also we take the step you suggested of having the party chair nudge the candidate, but that if we don't receive any kind of response by our next meeting, I think we should read the warning into the record so that the public knows that there's a candidate who hasn't complied, but also, we've given them multiple chances to explain themselves to the public and explain what happened and hasn't taken that opportunity. And I think it's fair for us to read that warning at that point. We're not saying anything pro or con about the candidate, right? We're just reading the warning that they haven't complied with, that they failed to comply with a requirement that we think is quite important.
Are you looking for me to?
I think I'm looking at everyone. Does that sound like a good way to proceed? And then if so, we can break it down into different motions.
I just think we need to, it seems as if there's only one question mark left for this item. I think we just make that public record that we're waiting for that until the next meeting. And if not, I don't even know that we need a motion. That's up to you, but we will be reading it into the record at the next meeting. And then again, I think there needs to be a clearly outlined procedure for this in the future. And if there's a non-response, I would take that as a second warning and move directly to fines. I mean, I don't know how that works, but I think we're incredibly lenient. I think that Karen doing extra work is, while nice, I don't agree with it. I think that nobody should be doing extra work on behalf of adults. That's just my personal opinion. And I feel very strongly about that. The first 10 years of my career, I dealt with children and I didn't have to hold their hands sometimes as much as I do adults in my career now. So
And that's my point
it's
too.
very important.
That's my point too. I don't want to punish the entire class for the action of one.
Absolutely.
Nobody likes that feeling. But we're at a place where if we don't take this seriously, it sets a precedent that I don't want to be a party to.
Right. And then our rules don't mean anything if we don't enforce them.
Correct.
I agree. And yes, and now I also know why you're a great coach.
I don't know about that, but.
Hi, election board. It's Molly. I'm on Zoom. To speak to Donovan's point, I do think it's a good idea to lay out the procedures in writing and clearly. And I'm happy to sit down with Karen or Clerk Brown or any of you after the election to try to get that in writing.
I think we already have it in writing, but
I
perhaps
believe that
could
we already have it in writing. And
Yeah.
so what I understood was we'll bring what we have in writing
Right.
back to the table. It's a different election board than it was when we first came up with those procedures
Mhm.
and review. But I'm embarrassed to say I only caught about half of what she said. I actually didn't even know until just now you could jump in.
Yeah, and I think I can clarify. I think I heard everything this time, but correct me if I'm wrong. But I think what we're discussing is revisiting that we have a written procedure, but we want to revisit it and, make sure it's not too lenient perhaps and isn't creating extra work for Karen. And you pointed out it was a different election board that adopted that policy. And so it makes sense to revisit after the election and think about whether we want to strengthen, the existing procedure or make any other changes given what we've seen happen in this cycle, right? And I think that's completely appropriate. And so I don't know if we need a motion for that. I don't think we do, but maybe we could just put it as an agenda item
An
following
agenda
the
item
election.
tabled until,
I would just say my last comment, whoever that candidate is, I didn't even hear who the candidate is, and it really doesn't matter. Just for the record, write the letter, write the email. This isn't that difficult and that goes for everyone. Just get it done. It takes 35 seconds to write an email and hit send. So everybody's busy. Everybody's got stuff to do, but please write the letter, whoever that is. Thank you.
Right. And again, our intent here is this is public service, a public service role that someone is doing and the public is entitled to hear from them. So, okay. Great. Thank you. So we have an agenda item moving forward. And then we have a potential agenda item for our next meeting, depending on what happens with the further communications. Is it all clear? I just wanted to make sure since we are all not hearing everything. Okay. And I'm now talking directly into the microphone and so hopefully it's all getting caught. Okay, great. So let's move to our next item. We're on to new business and I understand that Karen has some updates for us.
I do have some updates. So 2 weeks ago, I had a leads meeting, which is the leads for the early voting, the whole events of early voting. And so I got those 4 leads together and they got everything. We talked everything over and they're starting to hire people for early voting and it's going well. And so that's that staffing for early voting. And with that, the election operations, it has had the paint on the outside. If you haven't driven by, it looks really nice. And they got the awning up. They're getting ready to paint on the inside. They have fixed some of the things that were in the parking lot. There was 2 big divots that pooled water and also created a hazard for stumbling, and that's been filled in. And at the end, when you walk into election operations, there's a kind of a long, I don't know what you would call it, but it's kind of like a wide, long sidewalk. And then it drops off into the parking lot. And there was a lip there that was hard for a wheelchair to get up on top of it. That's been filled in. So that's going to be smoother. We have new doors. The doors are not new, but they put in the electric push button automatic door openers. The doors were pretty heavy for certain people if you weren't strong or elderly. And that's a big improvement. We already have gotten the heating and cooling elements that are in the ballot room. That was a requirement that we had to have that for that size of a room. That is done. It should be painted on the inside shortly. Maybe this week, I'm not really for sure. But so it's looking good. It looks great if you drive by. And the inside will be even better. I think this week the commissioners just gave their approval of the paint for the inside. And so today I have the meeting with I have 4 leads that do military and overseas and mailed ballots. 2 of them were able to come in today, so we've started that process. And it's getting back into the computer, which sounds so easy, but with the state system, it's not, it's quite a complex system and it seems to change pretty often. But that is really good because of the security that it is. It's not a simple thing to get into, even if you think you know what you're doing. So they're there now and working on a few things, getting ready to mail out ballots. The ballots that have had applications, they will all go out by, it's September 24th, I think, if that's a Saturday. It always gives us a Saturday deadline. We always aim, of course, before that, but that week, probably Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. Legally, we have to have them out by then. But of course, in the meantime, I have to have the ballot ready. Tuesday was the viewing of the ballot. And if anybody is out there, a candidate, I had a good turnout. I had a number of people, about 36 people that came in to view the ballot. Just to give you perspective, there were 74 local people that were on the ballot. So I got about half, and that's higher than normal, which of course I never get the federal or state people. That's understandable. But it's such an important part because it really gives another set of eyes. You are checking your part of the ballot. And even though everyone else has looked at it so many times, you're going to see it differently. It's your name, it's your office, it's your precinct or your district, or maybe you're the whole county. So that went well. I was very happy with that. And so now I am ready to send that off to Hart InterCivic in Austin, Texas. That will produce the ballot in the right format, that it can be scanned and it can be sent out. And I was going to send it out actually Wednesday or Thursday, but in fact, Miss Nicole, you always want me to, which I agree, to send it to the state and have them check several of them. I like to send the federal only, and one from Bloomington and one from Ellettsville area, because they're different ballots. But the gentleman that does that, I found out he got COVID and he's at home. He told me he would check it on Tuesday, but he's not been in the office Tuesday and he hasn't been on yesterday. And I sent him an email today and I thought I better check another direction. And I found out today that he is home ill. So I don't know if I'm going to get that state check unless you know some other direction to go. But so if that's true, then I'll probably go ahead and send the ballot to Hart today. And that's always a big deal too, because you're saying it's perfect, it's time to go, and you hit send and you pray that it all is good. But I've had a lot of people look at it and there was really no mistakes found even in the review day. So that was really good. Any thoughts on that, Clerk Brown?
Well, your announcement that the gentleman is not well is news to me as well, and that's certainly unfortunate. It sounds as though we've done everything that we can do short of that, so we have to get that ballot going. It does not wait.
Okay, yes. And it takes them time to get it back to us, so we get it, so we can print ourselves, and then they print all our ballots for election day, which is another process. So another update, I do a training for voter registration through the League of Women Voters. I conduct the training. They get people, if anybody's interested in doing the classes, it's good to contact the League of Women Voters. And I've had 2 classes already just recently, and I have 2 more next week, September 6th and September 8th. The 6th one is at 4 o'clock and September 8th is at 10 o'clock at Election Central. But it just helps people if they're interested in registering people. You don't have to take the class to register people, but it will give you a lot more confidence and it shows you what needs to be done and it makes it a cleaner process for us in the office. And then one last thing is September 20th is National Voter Registration Day. I know IU is doing some things about that, but so if you didn't know that, National Voter Registration Day is just around the corner.
Thank you. I had a question if,
And I had a comment.
oh,
No, you go first.
okay. Well, first, thank you for all of those updates. And also, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's been involved in all of that. It sounds like a lot of really hard work has gone into all of this. And that's, we really appreciate that. And I wanted to ask 2 questions. One is, could you tell me the date of the voter registration training again? I just didn't catch it.
For the class,
The class, yeah,
I have 2, September 6th
September
at
6th.
4 o'clock at Election Central, and the other is September 8th. So one's Tuesday and Friday,
Great.
excuse me, Tuesday and Thursday, and the 8th is at 10 o'clock.
Great. Thank you so much. I will try to spread the word about those as well. And I had one more question, which is that my understanding back when we were talking about the primaries and locations and everything, that that we had said that we would open up Election Central as a location if we had enough poll workers for the site as well. And then I know I had personally committed to asking people to be poll workers and recruit some, and I succeeded with at least one person, but I will keep trying. And I was just wondering if we know how many more poll workers we might need, or if there's a way, you know, just as we're trying to get the word out and kind of emphasizing that we need poll
Sure.
workers and that they're so important and are doing such a great public service.
So we have 2 recruiters. One is a Democratic recruiter, and it's Orion Saft. And the Republican recruiter is Pamela Samples. And they both have done this for several elections and are very good at what they do. If you need their name or phone number or email, please call my office in voter registration or me personally, and I will get that information. Or if you have my email, you can send me an email and I just pass them on. I don't know the numbers. They haven't officially started. They will start 6 weeks out from the election.
I see. Okay.
And right now, I can't remember that date for sure.
Okay.
I'm missing that date, but 6 weeks out from November 8th, they officially start. However, I've already accumulated a number of names and I'm passing them on already. So we take all that information. We gladly would take both parties. We obviously need both parties represented.
Okay, thank you. And I've been trying every time I go to a public event, just make an announcement saying that we need poll workers and encouraging people to volunteer. So,
Yes.
thank you.
And you work on election day, you get paid. And the price had gone up. I don't really want to say the prices right now. I mean, it didn't go up from the primary, but it's, you know, it's such an important day. It's very exciting and you feel like you're really a part of something and you are doing a great service to your community and you get paid. I mean, what's a better deal?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I need to emphasize it's not just volunteering, you actually get paid as well.
Yes.
So help democracy and get paid. Thank you.
So the only comment that I wanted to make about election operations, I'm embarrassed to admit that I tend to get up earlier than I really want to, and I tend to drive to work sometime between 5:30 and 6:30 in the morning. And so I can see into, when you're at that light at 3rd and Walnut, I can see into election operations. And I'm just concerned about that because I know I've spoken about that and there is the filming so that if it's daytime and daylight, you don't see in, but before daylight, our equipment's not in there right now. It is secure, it is housed, but those are my concerns. I don't know what we can do about it. I just know that I've expressed concerns about that. And I'm just pointing that out, that between 5:30 and 6:30 a.m., you can see in there. But great job agreed on the paint and the lighting. It is a noticeable improvement for which we are appreciative.
And so you mean in the dark, if the lights are on, you can see into the window? Or if it's-
Right.
Okay.
Right. And, you know, during the day, of course, it's going to be manned. There will be people there, but if you're going to do, I'm not a burglar. I don't play one on TV, but I imagine if you're going to do anything nefarious, it would be in the darker hours where you're less likely to be recognized.
Thank you. And is that maybe something that we can ask for, like protective paint or curtains or something? I don't know.
Some guidance would be nice. We've had some recommendations from the Department of Homeland Security. I believe we were advised that Monroe County government didn't necessarily agree with everything that was recommended by the Department of Homeland Security.
Is this something that we could send an email to the commissioners and request that they consider?
Sure.
Does that mean, can we ask Karen if?
I would
how do
be
we-
happy to
are
do
you-
that.
you could do- Okay, thank you. Great. Should we move to our next item? Is there further? Okay. I'm not sure if you covered the next item, equipment testing. I know you started discussing that a little bit.
Bob White has done quite a bit of some updating. There's been a lot of pieces of equipment that have come and gone between our place in Austin, Texas, and have come back. I think I have everything. I just got back an e-poll book last week. And I believe Bob has done everything that he could at this point, but we are scheduled to do an LAT/LAB. That's kind of a new testing. I think it's going to be the same thing, but just done a little more detailed, and we're going to be learning more about that. But that will be done. Bob will do that. I don't have the date of that yet. It kind of all depends. We got to, of course, get our ballot back, and that's open to the public also.
Sir, are you a member of Bob's team or are you public comment?
Yeah, I was gonna, at the completion of this agenda item, I was gonna move to public comment, which if you have made your update and if there's no discussion, we could move to.
I have no discussion.
Great, so we'll turn to
Before
public.
we go, sorry, before we go to public comment, just as a reminder, but when you get that date for the LAT testing, you'll need to send out legal notice in accordance with IC 5314, which is the public access law.
We're aware.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So just before we start public comment, I just make an announcement about, we welcome public comment and we can have it both in person as well as if there's someone on Zoom who wants to comment. We do have a person here in person, but for those of you on Zoom who might want to make a public comment, if you could raise your hand or somehow otherwise get our attention so that we can turn to you when it's your turn. So we'll give you some time to do that. And in the meantime, we'll start with the person who is here in person for their public comment, and you may begin.
Yeah, and thank you. I wanted to make sure I was within the time and doing that correctly. Oh, excellent. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to address on this issue. I know voting machines and related issues have been a major item in the news. I had the opportunity to work my first election cycle polls in the primaries, was planning to again, had been trying to learn more about the process. And so that was my interest in speaking. Several quick points, and I'll definitely keep it within the time window. I wanted to express very briefly concerns related to just the entire structure of voting machines. I know there are opportunities to inspect. It was going to do that, was definitely in the process of a learning process on that. And so I appreciate all those opportunities provided. Overall, though, I mean, one could talk at length about Department of Homeland Security mentioned, related entities, EAC, the entire HAVA Act itself in 2002, the history of that, and the complex mechanisms by which those create serious problems. I would have no time to address that right now in terms of ultimately, but I would have interest in bringing those issues up with interested parties, not for partisan issues, but for, we hear a lot of talk about our democracy, and that's important to me. So I would just sum it by saying, I think that very strongly that paper ballots with a hand counting procedure, highly secured, is necessary for truly secured elections. I can get into more of that just in future learning and interacting with people. My main motivation, in all honesty, was because I have not taken much part in the society I live in, primarily, but was trying to remedy that in terms of interest in things, volunteering and being part of things with the election. My main motivation, honestly, is because it's been, I've learned that there have been many things that I would have thought inaccurate in terms of things going on in the society and have tried to research those. I think we're all indicted at a tremendous degree, and it goes far beyond partisan issues. And as I've looked more and more into meaningful information, I've been more and more convicted myself relating to my own lack of involvement in assisting my neighbor. I honestly, it's been due to severe OCD and anxiety a lot of my life. And I'm indicted very much by the scripture in God's word, where he says, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs. He talks about cleaning the outside of the cup while the inside is filthy. And I've been much more concerned with matters of externality rather than truly helping my neighbor. And so I'm trying to address that and would plea that far beyond politics or partisan issues, I know very strongly my own indictment by the word of God in those things. And I think we live in a society, I mean, driving in to come to the meeting, I'm not saying this in a condemnatory way, it's entirely from love, but walk by a sign flashing big board, welcome to pride. And if there's been anything that God has convicted me of, it's my own pride, even in attempting to pursue righteousness. I've allowed myself to be blind to things going on in society that are impactful on everyone. And I think that concept indicts myself and also the society at large. Again, this is not condemnatory, but I've listened to several election boards online and today heard much talk relating to exterior paint jobs and a discussion of fines here and fines there regarding documentation, all of which are necessary. But, the scripture just before what I read talks about
I just wanted to make a note that you had gone over time, so,
okay.
but I wanted to give you a chance to wrap up.
One sentence and a half or so, and I very much thank you. I do, it's short window, so thank you. That we all need to be able to work together on these things because I think we live in a very blessed society and we've all allowed ourselves to become extremely prideful, focusing on minor matters when things much more central, which are very, very real, but because of our prideful blindness, myself, everyone, I think, have gone unaddressed, and those have very real consequences. And so much more than just voting machines, that's one expression, but it reaches very far. And so we have to address the root cause. As a Christian, I know that's salvation in Jesus Christ, and then all the rest of the things, whether they're minor or major, flow out from that. And so it's just a plea, thank you for the extra time as well, to seriously address some of these things that go far beyond partisan issues, but to do so with the spirit of addressing what's at the core and then working out from there, because that's honestly, I think, the only way we can meaningfully address certain things in our society. I mean,
Thank you for your comment. And one question, I don't know if you identified yourself in the beginning. I know you wrote your name down on the sheet, but I think for people who can't, the online audience, if you could just state your name. And
oh, okay. And I didn't, because honestly, I'm not important, but it's on there. My name's Nick Burleson, and I have worked election polls. So
okay, thank you. Thank you for your comment. And let me now look at the online audience and see if there's anyone who would like to make a comment. We had asked for either the raised hand function or for someone to put it in the chat if there is a comment. So I'm just going to take a quick scan and see. It looks like, yeah, I don't see anybody with a hand raised. So thank you. And with that, we'll conclude the public comments. Our next item is just the announcement that our next county election board meeting is October 6th, 2022 at 1 p.m. in this room, and also will be virtually accessible as well. And then our next item is like to ask for a motion to recess or adjourn.
Madam Chair, if I can make a motion to recess, as the board is requested to convene at the budget hearings. Our meeting for the budget hearings to discuss the election budget among the other clerk budgets is 5:00 p.m. on Thursday, September 8th. And so I would like to make a motion that we recess in lieu of adjournment. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a roll call?
Chair Rana,
Yes.
Board Member Garlitz,
Yes.
and Clerk Brown.
Yes.
Motion approved, 3-0.
Thank you. So we will recess and we look forward to our next meeting as well. Thank you.
Thank you.